Look at this! Activity in Steelers country. This never happens. I'm going on curtain.
One of the more recent developments to come to Kennywood is Steelers Country, a self-contained area themed around the Pittsburgh Steelers NFL team. First announced in 2018, Steelers Country was intended to be a first-of-its-kind area, as no other amusement park had attempted an NFL partnership on this level, with the new Steel Curtain coaster as its centerpiece. As time passed, though, it became apparent that Steel Curtain would be the only major attraction in the area, leaving a ton of ideas and concepts on the cutting room floor. Now that Kennywood seems to finally be doing something with the area, let's take a look back at the original plan for Steelers Country. When the land was first announced in 2018, it took pretty much everyone by surprise. The announcement came fresh off of a leaked coaster layout rumored to be from RMC, so nobody was expecting Steel Curtain. I did a few speculation videos back then, and I was nowhere close with my predictions. A multi-inversion Vekoma is as close as I got to what we actually ended up getting. Along with an animation of this bizarre new coaster came a number of concept illustrations of what the Steelers Country area would look like. These illustrations were made courtesy of JRA, a Cincinnati-based design firm responsible for the layout and appearance of Steelers Country. Some might say it's not fair to compare concept art to the final product, since the art is only supposed to represent a rough outline of what the real thing will look like. But if you look at how literally the concept art for the 2022 editions represented the final product, I think that makes it more fair for me to do the comparison and see what elements never saw the light of day. Steel Curtain by itself turned out pretty close to the early animations, so I won't be focusing much on that here. Instead, I'll be looking at the rest of the area, so let's start off with the entrance. At first glance, it looks pretty close to how the real thing turned out, but a closer look shows things that didn't make the cut. The archway here has a more elaborate look to it, with brickwork around the base, and the actual shape of the arch is different. The archway is also flanked by two flower beds in the shape of the Steelers logo. Although these areas did become landscaped, we never did get the logos here. In the background, however, is the most significant cancelled element, the entrance tunnel. The original plan for the Steelers Country entrance called for a tunnel that would simulate the tunnel that the Steelers run through when entering onto Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, whatever the heck they're calling it now. This tunnel would begin at the base of Steel Curtain's tallest supports before turning left and opening up into the area proper. As you can see in this concept art, the tunnel's interior would have been decorated on the walls and ground. Although this would have made the process of entering Steelers Country feel more grand, I know a lot of people who are glad this tunnel was never built. It would have made the area feel even more disconnected from the rest of the park, and it would have also made shots like this impossible to get. What do you think? Would you have kept the tunnel? Let me know down in the comments. Upon exiting the tunnel, we can see the Steelers Experience building, and this is one case where the concept art accurately represented the final product. The exterior of the building looks pretty close to what we got. The design of the Jumbotron did end up changing, but the design shown in the concept art looks pretty generic, so it may have only been a placeholder. The inside of the Experience building, however, is something that would never open to the public, and I'll come back to that in a moment. In front of the building is another feature that would never be added, the Steelers Fountain. In the shape of the Steelers logo, this fountain would serve as both a decorative feature and a play area for kids. Despite not being built, there is a manhole cover and grate here, so that suggests the decision to cut the fountain from the plans was made late into construction. Also of note are all these Steelers cutout photo ops. These never became a real thing either. The closest thing we got is this giant Steelers helmet that kids love to climb on. To the left of the building, we get a good look at the area outside the Endzone Cafe. This was intended to be the tailgating themed area, where guests could hang out, watch Steelers games on the Jumbotron, and get food from the Endzone Cafe's takeout window. Here, the window is situated inside a bus that's built into the side of the building. This bus would never be implemented, and the takeout window was relegated to a small window in the side of the building that only serves to be a pickup point for alcoholic drinks. The stadium backdrop was built, but the truck and the various mobile food vendors have never been seen in the area, likely because there's never a huge crowd back here. In fact, it was only recently that we saw any kind of huge activity in this area of Steelers Country. To the left of the end zone, 3 midway games were intended to be here. These games actually did open, but only a handful of times, likely due to staffing issues. I only saw them open once myself, and at the time, only 2 of the 3 were open. Recently, the spaces these games occupied were repurposed into a new indoor and outdoor bar. Just like the End Zone Cafe, this area uses the inside of the old Whip Pavilion, and it's decorated well. The floor is even covered in AstroTurf to make it feel like you're standing on the field. Since the Midway games were never really open, this is a change that I and many others are fine with. Looking over towards Steel Curtain's entrance, there are fewer differences to see, but a few do stick out. Curtain's entrance has some rock work that isn't present in the final product, and the appearance of the sign was changed. I much prefer the final design of the Steel Curtain sign over this earlier version, and the sign itself is also situated to the right of the entrance instead of the left as shown here. The entrance was also moved farther back to allow for a small entrance plaza in front. I have no idea what's going on down here with this giant Steelers cutout. I think this was intended to be the entrance to the gift shop, but I can't be sure of that. This just looks weird if you ask me, and I'll gladly take the more simplistic entrance sign we ended up getting. This brings us back to the Steelers Experience building, definitely the biggest cancelled aspect of Steelers country. The interior of the building has never been open to the public, and I have very few photos of the inside with the lights on during construction. When Steel Curtain had its Media Day previews, construction on the rest of the land was still very much underway, and the inside of the building had a lot of mystery surrounding it since nobody had seen it. At the time, all we had to go off of were the concept images, and they looked promising. Starting with the first and likely most well-known image, the centerpiece of the building would be the Terrible Tower, obviously a play on the terrible towel that has become synonymous with the Steelers. This would be a climbing structure with slides for kids to play on. I guess they could repurpose this name if they ever add a drop tower in Steelers country. In the background we can see one of the building's main attractions, the 40-yard dash. According to Rick O'Connell, Senior Project Director for JRA, this would involve 2 guests at a time who would have to race the full 40 yards. At the beginning, you would get to select from a list of Steelers players who would race alongside you on an LCD screen, and they would no doubt win every time. The entertainment then would come from watching how well the 2 guests could keep up with the Steelers. The best times of each day would be logged and displayed on one of 2 jumbotrons inside the building. The second main attraction inside the building is shown here, the 2-minute drill. Each guest would be situated inside a booth with a surplus of footballs, and when the 2-minute countdown began, would have to try and throw as many footballs as possible through the moving targets. This is a good time to mention that nearly everything inside the building would be RFID driven. Upon entering the building, guests would be given a bracelet which they would have to scan before participating in each attraction. This is how high scores and best times would be kept track of and displayed on the jumbotrons. For the 2-minute drill, each football would also have an RFID chip attached to it, and this would allow the game to know who threw each football that had passed through a target. With high scores being logged each day, I could see this easily becoming a huge draw for the area, with people returning throughout the day to try and best their previous scores. A smaller attraction in the corner of the building would be the Steelers training camp, and this appears to be an obstacle course for guests to try and complete as fast as possible. No competition here, just a personal challenge to get through the course as fast as you can. I'm not too sure from looking at this if best times would be kept track of though. It might have just been from the previous 2 games. And last, we have this image, which seems to show an area towards the back of the building, with a small midway game in the corner. I'm not exactly sure where in the building this is supposed to be. My biggest question is, where does this door lead to? It's way too small to be the main exit, that's a set of double doors, and if this is at the back of the building, it would put you out right on the train tracks. We know that there was supposed to be a connecting doorway leading into the Steel Curtain gift shop, and I'm pretty sure that's just out of frame right here, so where this leads, I have no idea. And there you have it. That's everything that was planned to be inside the Steelers Experience building, and everything meant to be inside Steelers country. As you can tell, the early plans were ambitious, and just by looking at other concept art like this aerial shot, the land really made the most use of the space available. This was looking to be an incredibly popular spot to just hang out and enjoy your time within the park, or challenge yourself to set new records in the Experience building. It would be full of things to do, and it could even pave the way for more NFL-themed areas at other amusement parks. Of course, we all now have the benefit of hindsight, and we know how well that all turned out. In Kennywood's defense, it's not entirely their fault. When the world shut down in 2020 right as construction in the Experience building was midway through, the park suddenly had more important things to worry about. For a while, it looked as though Kennywood wouldn't even open that year, but they did open, for around 2 months. During those 2 months, the entirety of Steelers country was inaccessible, including Steel Curtain. By 2021, although regulations had become more relaxed, we were still living in a world where indoor, hands-on attractions were suddenly a lot less enticing, and also viewed as risky by a lot of people. The park was faced with a choice, and with the building's interior construction still on hold, chose to cancel the remainder of the project, leaving Steel Curtain as the only major attraction in this area of the park. Fast forward to the end of the 2022 season, and what is Steelers Country? I'll tell you what it is. It's an area people walk into to ride Steel Curtain. That's it. People walk back here, ride Steel Curtain, take a few pictures, and walk back into the park. Maybe they'll grab a bite at the End Zone Cafe, but even this is not always open. This is the problem with having only one major attraction in a large area of the park, and this led to most of the land, save for Steel Curtain's queue, being pretty empty in the last few seasons. Recently, however, this has started to change. At a passholder night ride session in August, Steelers Country was livelier than ever with the new bar area open and many games out on the Midway. People were hanging out, watching a preseason game on the Jumbotron, and this was the first time since the area's construction that I was truly reminded of the concept art. The building was still closed though, its signage since removed, with papers in the window that read, "Closed to the public." Since then, we've learned that the building will finally serve a purpose. For this year's Phantom Fall Fest, a new Alice in Wonderland themed haunt will be located inside the Experience building, marking the first time the building will be open to the public. Of course, this is only for the Halloween season, so what becomes of the building after this year remains to be seen. I've heard theories ranging from an indoor flat ride to a Steelers-themed dark ride, so they could do anything in there at this point. As for Steelers Country as a whole, the area is in desperate need of some new additions, but the problem is how the area is laid out. It's bordered on both sides by Racer and the railroad track, making expansion and future rides almost impossible. For all we know, the park may even choose not to renew the Steelers license when the time comes, allowing them to do whatever they want with the area. Nobody knows what the future holds for Steelers Country, but it'll definitely be an area of Kennywood to keep an eye on in the future. At least we have this concept art showing what could have been, had the world continued as normal in 2020. But now let's take the discussion of Steelers Country a bit further, since there's still a lot to talk about regarding this area of the park. What parts of the concept art would you have liked to check out most? That 2-minute drill did look like a lot of fun. Most importantly though, what do you see coming in the future for Steelers Country? Is a rebrand on the horizon for the area, or what new attractions could you see being added? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and keep it here on Rampaging Rex Productions for all things Kennywood.